Hello, alright, you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen, home of gritty bow hunting films, interviews, tall tales, and a wee bit of manly boasting.
I'm South Cox, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Hey, this is Corey Jacobson, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
We born and raised outdoors, and you've been listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
There you go.
I'm Casey.
And I'm Jordan.
And you're watching
The Gritty Bowmen.
The elk have to eat, sleep, in the rut, have sex. Eat, sleep, have sex, and and drink. They have to do one of those four things. I may have had too much Yeti this morning.
Start that over. We'll just edit that out.
Mother of pearl. Dang. My advice usually is shoot the first thing that's legal in front of you on your first hunt as a learning experience. Because the pack out, you're going to learn a lot from that pack out. Probably as much as you learned from the rest of the entire experience. What is that? An oxymoron. You bought a bunch of stuff to go hunting, but you can't afford to go hunting. Get the gear the best you can afford. But if you've got to hunt in somewhat crappy gear for the first couple years, it's good for the soul. It builds character to go suck it up.
If you like the show, please go to our website at grittybowman.com and subscribe to this podcast and tell your mates and pals about us. Do us a favour and please take a moment to leave us a rating or a review on iTunes or on our YouTube channel. Send your questions and podcast ideas to grittybowman@gmail.com. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you can see the video version of this podcast on our website at www.grittybowman.com.
All right, folks. Welcome back to the Gritty Bowman podcast. We are here with Aron Snyder, and this time, for real, we're going to do a podcast on Western hunting.
That's the plan.
No squirrels. Let's get right into it, Aron. A guy coming from the East or even someone who's just never hunted in the West, how does he get started?
Well, first, let's make sure that you got to bracket out a few different things. So some of the guys I've told to do, especially the ones that are really OCD, is take a sheet of paper and you're going to make sort of a tree. What did you call it the other day? You got a name for it. But either way, you're going to make
a decision tree.
A decision tree. Thank you. Brian has been to college. I skipped that portion of my life. And you're going to write down what animal you want to hunt. You're going to write down what state maybe you want to hunt. You're going to break all these different things out. The big thing is going to be, do you have an inside source for the specific animal? Meaning, do you have a buddy in Idaho? Do you have a buddy in Colorado and Montana, one that can give you the hookup on a decent area? Do you want to try and drive? Do you want to try and fly? You need to decide all of those things. What you want out of the hunt. Do you want to hunt in big, dark, thin, good Lord, like dog hair thick timber forest? Do you want to hunt at 11,000 feet above tree line? There's multiple things. So get some of your deciding factors figured out and get them jotted down. We're going to use Idaho. I want to hunt elk. I want to hunt in Idaho. Obviously, an over-the-counter tag. I have no points. And I want to try and drive. Pretty easy, okay? So first thing you know, if you're driving, the gear issue isn't an issue. You can take whatever you want, basically, in the back of your vehicle, meaning gear of what to bring. When you fly, it gets a little twitchy because you get a little nervous, and then you're packing extra bags, and then how do you get the meat back? So you're driving. Big relief. Okay, you picked Idaho because you have read from the Hunting Fool that there's a awesome unit in Idaho that you need to go to that's public land, okay? Then you're going to do a backpack hunt. It's in the wilderness, okay? And in Idaho, you can go to the end of the wilderness as a out-of-state or a resident, whatever the case. You can hike into the wilderness. In Wyoming, you can't. And you're going to hunt elk, which is an over-the-counter tag. It's about as easy as it gets there. You can drive into Walmart or whatever they have, and so wherever they sell black sheep or whatever sporting goods store, and you can buy your tag when you get there, or you can buy it ahead of time.
In Idaho. You can buy them at a gas station, man.
Yeah, wherever they sell them. You can't buy them in Colorado at a gas station. We like weed, and anti-hunters are everywhere. So you're not going to be able to buy one here, except at a sporting goods store in Walmart. You can pick your tag up here. You drove, so you got all the gear you need. You've got your spot the hunting fool told you to get. I'm just throwing the hunting fool out here. Eastman's is a great source, their MRS section.
Yep.
Check out one of those. So now it's really going to be up to you to find the elk. And here's where the big problem arises. And we'll go into some of this in a lot more detail in a few minutes. A lot of people contact me each year with the same exact question, which is what we're talking about. I'm heading out west. I don't know if I can afford it till 2027 because of the gear I have to buy. Right there, I mean, Hugh Glass's movie's about to come up, and he had a bear hide and a musket, and he made it. Well, I mean, he made it after getting attacked by a bear. Don't focus on gear too much. If you got money, buy really good gear. If you don't have much money and you buy gear and you can't afford the tag, kind of an oxymoron. You bought a bunch of stuff to go hunting, but you can't afford to go hunting. So kind of weigh that stuff out. Get the gear the best you can afford, but if you've got to hunt and somewhat crappy gear for the first couple years, it's good for the soul. It builds character to go suck it up. After that, it's all how much you physically have dedicated it and how mentally tough you are, in my opinion, for public land hunting. And the caliber of animal you want to shoot. A lot of people watch too many Primos videos and they get the idea that there's going to be bull and screaming, running in. It happens, but it doesn't happen very often. My advice usually is shoot the first thing that's legal in front of you on your first hunt as a learning experience. Because the pack out, you're going to learn a lot from that pack out. Probably as much as you learned from the rest of the entire experience. You're going to learn quite a bit from the pack out, specifically on a backpack hunt.
So your first priority, though, is network with an inside friend, like somebody that in the Western state, like if it's Washington, your recommendation is network with that person, work with that person, and maybe instead of going to Idaho, go to Washington.
Yeah, exactly. When you're going through the step-by-step process, and I laid it out kind of on a broad spectrum in the first go-around there, if it's Washington, you can't hunt eastern Washington figure out the game laws, right? So you're probably going to be hunting western Washington. And let's say it's a friend that just gave you some advice on where to go, for example, where to backpack into. If you feel solid with that and you feel comfortable that he's not leading you astray, you've got your decision made for you, that's where you're going. Pretty cut and dry. Now you just need to train for it. You need to get, learn the animal as much as you possibly can, learn as much as you can off Google Earth and talking to your buddy, things like that. In a lot of cases, which is not the smart way to do it, in states I've went and hunted, I kind of skipped all that and just kind of figured an area. I threw a dartboard at a map that knew a held elk, and I just hiked in there and looked and found some and killed one. But the elk hunting and mule deer hunting or hunting out west is kind of put on a pedestal for a lot of guys from back east that it may not be attainable or it's not doable. It's just it's too big. The glass is too full to fill up. And getting enough info to get you to pop on that pedestal and head on out, whatever that takes, whether it's the MRS section with Eastman's or it's a buddy that tells you where to go with your gut on what you feel the best about as far as choosing where you're going to hunt. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so in my case, let's say I'm going to go to Western Washington, blind, never been there. And you just told me, Brian Call said, I've heard there's some decent elk herds on the Quinault mountain range on the west side. Well, for me at that point, that's about all I'm going to get from you. You've told me on the Quinault mountain range, and I'm going to get on Google Earth and figure out what roads are open and closed. Am I hiking in on a logging road? Am I hiking in on a trail? Where the boundaries are, what time of year I should probably go as far as season dates, where I got to fly into. It's really not overly difficult. What I have noticed is the physical, knowing the animal and the physical, your own personal physical abilities are the two key factors when you get into any area, with any info or not.
So Let me back it up for a second, because I think of it like this. Like, if you're hunting an area where you're putting in for points, a limited entry draw unit in any of the western states, or a unit that's let's just say limited entry draw unit, okay, controlled hunt. If you're drawing a hunt that takes a guy 5 years sometimes, but 10 years or 15 years to draw, hunters are very open with their hunting spots in those units, because they're not going to draw it again for another 10 years anyway, right? So if you draw like Mount Emily, Oregon, and a guy was there last year, he'd be happy to tell you on any forum. Go on Rockslide, go on Muley Crazy, go on Eastman's, go on any hunting forum, your local community's bow site, say, hey, guys, I drew a tag in this unit. Is anybody out there that can help me figure out where to go? Guys will share that information. I found they're pretty readily available, eager to share it, right?
Yeah. Over the counter is different.
Over the counter is different, dude, because there are people who have burnt the shoe leather, who have sweat their butts off to find these places through trial and error year after year, and now they know where to go, where other hunters don't go, where it's not as crowded, or where the big bull is they're tracking each year. And so it's a little bit different, like getting in those places where there's not a lot, where you're going to have a good hunt. People aren't willing to share that openly.
When we say over the counter, when I say that, it means you can draw that, or excuse me, you can get that tag every year, meaning you can buy it over the counter at a sporting goods store.
The same is true, though, for a limited entry hunt that takes 2 years to draw. Maybe it takes 2 points or something. Those types of units, hunters aren't willing to give up their honey hole because they go there all the time. So in those kind of areas, I don't think you're going to be able to network that well unless you have like an uncle or a brother or somebody out west that can really help you, because hunters aren't really willing to give you too much information. Now, they might tell you, I hunt this unit, but that's about as much as they're going to give you. Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
And those units are huge. So there's a big difference between this part of the unit that has no elk in it and this part of the unit that has a lot of elk in it. Again, the trouble is you're not necessarily going to be able to get information from fellow hunters for some of those places. And let's stick with elk hunting for now. So to me, at that point, when you're coming out west, if you're going to an over-the-counter unit or a unit that's very easy to draw, you can ask those questions on some forums. You can talk to some friends, try to network, meet some
You're probably going to piss people off. But just a side note, don't get on both sides and ask, how's unit whatever, 72? I've heard it's great. Don't do that.
No.
I wouldn't do that.
Get on there, but I think you're
going to get people lying to you when you do that.
You could say, hey, I'm taking, like if you're going out west, you could tell a group that you're coming from Pennsylvania, you've never done it, you want to have a good hunt. If anybody's out there from Montana, because that's where I'm going to go hunt, who can PM me and if you can help me.
Basic post. Yeah. I'm heading out west, looking to hunt Colorado. Over the counter, send me a message.
A private message. If you sit there and you say, I drew XYZ unit and I need to know where the best spot is in a public forum, it might seem like it's what you mean is to PM you, but specifically say it because you'll have a million guys that hunt that unit that read that and go, they're ready to string up anybody who responds to that.
Yeah. Well, in the case of 4 years ago, there was I was trying to figure out why all these people were in one of these specific spots. I mean, I pulled in and I was like, dang, what happened? Right. And I immediately got on 3 major hunting forums and with a quick flick of the thumb, figured out there was a major post on a major website, and some I hate to say chucklehead, but you out-of-state guys got on there and you were like, I hunted it last year and it was awesome. Now, that's cool, and it's great to help fellow hunters. It just won't be awesome for very long. I promise you. I've seen them go down, and I get criticized for this by helping too many people a lot. Like Colton, he loves me like a brother, but he is scared to death. I will tell someone of specific spots we've scouted for backup plans, right? And I mean, immediately somebody will ask a question about it to us directly at a range, and he's immediately looking at me like, you mother pumper, saying something, which, because I help too many people, it's justified that he's worried, right? Now, on my hand, I've killed a bunch of stuff, and I'm okay. I don't hardly ever. I mean, if I run into somebody, I don't get too irritated, and Colton doesn't either. It's just a matter of when your entire life revolves around 7 days, basically. Okay, 7 days of hunting or 10 days. So out of 365 days in the year, 355 are pent up frustration to let your hate and anger and love for the outdoors out in 10 days. And you see all of these people in that one spot you've worked so hard because of sharing of information on a forum. It can drive you crazy. Now, I'm sure some of you guys from back east or down south are thinking, it's public land, what's it matter? Well, you're saying that as you're hunting a 400-acre plot with feeders in South Texas that you own. Big difference compared to Colton and I backpacking in Colton's case, with not a free schedule. He works a full-time job. Kid works hard. Paid for his way through college by guiding. He's left after work 6 o'clock at night, braved the I-70 traffic, got to the trailhead at midnight, hiked in until 3 in the morning to scout, and then somebody posted online and there's 45 people there. It can be a big problem. And I'm only enunciating myself on this because it happens all the time.
Well, and it's sort of that same perspective, like I was saying earlier, when you draw an Arizona tag, let's say, and it took you 15 years, you know, a guy is willing to share that because he's not going back again for another 15 years, right? So he's like, look, here's the hunting spot. Here's where it's at. But that's extreme limited entry, so everybody kind of knows where those spots are. But
you can get people that hate you even for that, and I'll go into that.
You can, but it's the guy coming from, you know, Virginia who comes out here and hunts Colorado, finds a great spot on public land, and goes back and tells everybody about it. He's not going back again for another 10 years or so. Sometimes
now the red coats and the blue coats are at war.
Yeah, so there is a you know, I can see where a guy's coming from when he shares information.
Let give you an example, just and the Washington governor's tag.
Yes.
At one time, that used to go for $5,000 to $7,000. And at one time, I went on that hunt, and I've been on it multiple times after, and I publicized the hunt, and I posted photos and wrote a couple articles, and I'm pretty sure people want to kill me now because that thing went for $27,000 last year. That was not for any other reason than I mean, I'll blame most of that on myself because I posted about it. People learned there were some big goats where we were at. They learned that it wasn't that expensive to go on that hunt. And now I think most of Washington hates me because of that, because that tag went for so much. And that's limited entry. So think about, I'm in the middle of this, and it's my fault as much to blame as anything.
It is public, right? I mean, it's
well, I mean, I got to tell this story that you're not going to believe what happened. Just as an example of losing hunting areas by freak circumstances. Mm-hmm. I told Colton a couple years ago about a spot. Colton went in and hunted it, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, this completely screwed up our plans this year. Colton hunted it, and he's got a psychotic ex-fiance, okay? At the time he was with her, he took her in there one time scouting, and he talked about how awesome this spot is, and there was animals everywhere. Well, the day before season, I was in that spot, and we had to completely move areas because of this. I'm hiking out, and imagine this. I'm at 11.5, right? I'm hiking back out from where I just set camp up to meet Colton. And I see a guy and a girl walking up above tree line towards me to a super secret spot. And I'm like, that's weird. There's one bow, two people, male and female. I walk up to him. Guy's got a Kafaru pack on. I'm like, hey, nice pack, dude. He's kind of got his head down. And I'm like, weird. So my name's Aron Snyder. So you guys going to be hunting back here? And then I looked at the female who had the bow. Wouldn't you know it, that was Colton's ex-fiance with her boyfriend. She did that just to piss him off. And I'm like, she's like, Aron, I'll use a fictitious name. It's Diana, Colton's ex-girlfriend. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding? And I'm thinking, like, this is, level 9 type psychotic stuff from his ex. Dude, she told as many people as she could about that spot. Oh, you hunt? I know a great hunting area. And we ended up finding 9 people that she told in this one hunting area the day before season. And we had to pop smoke and move. Public land, over the counter. But I'll quit going on and on about this. But as you can imagine, that was from just a lady that had never hunted before. She took up hunting, and now that spot's basically ruined. She told everybody. I'm sure she's still telling people today. And that was one of the best spots I've ever hunted.
Yeah, I've Ben and I have found some spots that were really good, and then one guy knows, and then another guy knows, and another guy finds out. And especially when you start killing stuff, people figure out where it's at. They can, if you're not really careful. You show a photograph, and a guy can piece it together. They'll find it.
Google Earth is the devil.
It's like a two-edged sword. So the thing is, though, is once you have 30 or 40 guys into a little tiny canyon, it's over. The hunting's over there.
It can be as little as 4 guys.
Yeah.
Can end it.
So with that said, the whole point of that conversation was to say it's a little harder to find a good hunting spot when you're doing an over-the-counter or a pretty easy draw unit, because nobody wants to give away their information. So if you're coming out west, you're probably not going to get a lot out of other hunters in terms of advice and stuff. Not the greatest amount of support.
But I mean, to get back away from Colton's psychotic ex-fiance, is if you have enough info to get you started, I wouldn't stress out so much about the animals being there. Units are pretty big, but with physical fitness and knowing animal behavior, you find them.
That's kind of what I was going to say. I was going to say, if you're a fit, strong guy, okay, I think that one of the best things you can do, and if you're not, get that way, get yourself fit and strong. That sort of is the opposite. That gets you into some places and some hunts, opens some doors for you that otherwise wouldn't be there. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can now just pick some place that's really remote or quite remote, and you can get in there where you're going to have a good hunt and you're going to be away from a lot of people. But you better be fit and you better be in shape. You better have the mental toughness. Otherwise, it's not going to be much of an adventure. You'll be packing up after 1 or 2 days.
Right. So Google Earth, as we're talking about this, as much as I hate Google Earth, will get you some plan A, B, and C. It's going to get you
elk have to.
So elk, deer, any animal. We're only laughing because I screwed this up a second ago. All animals, including humans, we have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to drink. Depending upon the time of year, and try to have sex. In the case of 4-legged animals, it only happens once a year. When you find those things where that happens, you're going to find animals. So that's what Google Earth is used for, and maps. Knowing how to look at a map, read a map. So just go from where we're at right now. Me, Aron Snyder, I'm heading to Washington on an elk hunt on the west side. It's pretty wet over there. I don't really know where I'm going exactly. I know a lot of stuff's accessible by roads. So I know elk habitat pretty well. I'm going to figure out what roads I can drive on, what are closed, what I can hike in on. And that's where I'm going to start kind of my CSI / elk hunting season for 2016. Since I can drive to quite a few places, I'm going to be able to bounce around and basically head in and out of these areas till I find sign. Once I find that sign, or if I've hiked into an area a couple miles and found it, I might bounce back, grab 3-4 days of gear, and hike back in to find the elk. If it's Colorado where you're backpacking in, any area you backpack into in Colorado, for the most part, Idaho's not much different. You're going to find elk. The numbers are there. There's a lot of them. So when you backpack into an area, really, it's going to be a matter of boot leather on the ground to find the same things that may be in Western Washington, where you can drive around a bit, you could find driving. In Colorado, you're going to have to walk. But wilderness areas, as big as they are, they're not so big in Colorado you can't find the animals. There's a lot of elk. There's more elk in Colorado than anywhere else, double than most states. So you need to be knowing the animal behavior and the physical fitness. If you've got A, B, and C, I guarantee elk will be in one of those 3 places, no matter what. I think that the biggest problem people have is just the overwhelming, the sheer fear of coming out to do it, because the reality of it is it's probably only going to cost you about $1,000. When I say only, meaning pretty much anybody can rat hole $1,000 to $1,200 away from their wives if they're careful by doing side jobs.
Or wives from their husbands. And there's a lot of huntresses out there now.
I know. I've been getting in trouble for that lately. I've got to be more PC.
In your defense, it's been a male-dominated activity for a long time.
I don't know hardly any women that go solo for 14 days. But if you do, hide the money from your husband. Go do some nails, do some hair, build some fences, whatever you can do. In the case of men, if you can do hair, rub some funk on it, do some nails. We got to keep it EO here, equal opportunity. Rattle that money away. Your tag's going to be $600. You're going to have, $400 into fuel. Split it with a buddy, go out together. When you drive out, you don't have to go to a processor. If you learn how to handle the game in the field, it'll stay good for quite some time with some of the methods we've talked about in other podcasts. Have your coolers in your vehicle. Rough it. You don't have to stay in a hotel. You don't have to have a shower in the creek. You don't have to do anything dramatic. It may be a little rougher, but it'll be a memory that it'll echo through lifetime. It'll be a great experience for you. I just wouldn't stress out over it as much as people do. The tag process is fairly simple. You can get on the Colorado Department of Wildlife website and figure out if, for those of you listening, Brian is having an allergic reaction to Western hunting. And so if you kind of get over that mental barrier, picking your tags and finding your spot, in reality for Idaho and in Colorado specifically, there's animals everywhere. You just have to be willing to do what it takes to find them. Now, as far as animal behavior, like I said, you can, Chris Rowe with Rowe Hunting Resources, Corey Jacobson, all these guys have videos. They talk about, what to do when, how to find animals. I mean, it's all there. I mean, Google's a powerful thing.
There's a ton of stuff. If you're an elk hunter, go to Elk 101. There's a ton of stuff out there. You got Eastman's. There's resources to help you. I was going to say, Aaron, I have traveled to other Western states, sight unseen, but I'm familiar with elk hunting, right? So it's not as intimidating. I've hunted elk in my backyard forever. So I jump in the car, I drive 5 hours to Idaho, and I pick an over-the-counter unit. I've done some Google Earth stuff, and then I go hunt Idaho, right? Mm-hmm. Montana, similar. So I've kind of done that. But if I try to put myself in the shoes of like an Eastern guy coming to the West, the only similar experience I've had, I think, to that is going to like Prince of Wales to hunt black bear and Sitka blacktail. And again, it's just not that big a deal. We just bought some plane tickets. We flew there. We took a ferry to the island. We rented a car. We drove up into the mountains, just anywhere. We got out and we hiked through the bush to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
What are you smiling at?
My daughter is behind the screen making faces at me.
And
Well, you're right. That is the most equal.
then I bought my tag when I got there. It was $150 for a blacktail tag, Sitka blacktail. We hiked to the top of the mountain. We camped and we wandered around in this spot we had looked on Google Earth where it was just an alpine meadow. We got rained on a lot that particular hunt, and then had a great adventure, and then came home. Shot three deer, and because you can shoot more than one there in Alaska on Prince of Wales. So it was cool, and it was really cheap. It wasn't that expensive, and it was all kind of done on my own. Now, I could have hired a guide for that. I could have had paid 3-4 times as much, had it all kind of set up for me and walked me through it and everything. But it's so doable without one, and kind of my own adventure, that it appeals to me to do it that way. I like that whole thing done on my own steam, my own money, my own resources, figuring it out as I go. And so I think, coming, especially a guy that drives to Colorado, even if they fly and rent a car.
Yeah, a lot of guys do that.
It's not that expensive when you add it all up.
Yeah. Well, in the same boat, I mean, really, I know, animals pretty well, but as far as traveling, I've traveled to, Nebraska and Kansas to hunt whitetails. I've hunted in Wisconsin and in Minnesota. Well, I've hunted a lot of the different Midwestern states.
Yeah.
Where there was public land. You go to Tennessee, probably not going to. Texas, not a lot of public land out there, but you can find some in the Midwest. The thing that I have found with traveling east or traveling west, either one, was getting over the fear of failure, maybe, of not coming home with anything. If you plan your hunt around having fun, the kill will come. It's the guys that get over there and get wrapped too much into the grass is greener than syndrome and whatever the case may be. The guys that get wrapped up into that generally may have a little more trouble than guys that just go out there to have fun, chalk it up if they don't get anything.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, pretend you went on a vacation, and believe me, it will probably be cheaper than taking your wife to Cancun, and it's your own little vacation. And the death will come. Killing an animal will come. Harvesting an animal will happen. It may take you a few trips. You'll probably get into elk. Unless you just got some bad advice or just couldn't hack it coming up the trail. And I know a few examples or a few stories. I knew a few guys, just info guys, have asked me for, right? Guys, Pennsylvania, guys called me heading out west, telling me where they're going to go. And I have one specific time, this was in the Maroon Bells, they told me where they were going to go. And I'm like, hey, that is a commitment. You will have trouble getting up that. I have been up that trail. I would suggest you pop smoke on that plan and you find a new route. Do not go that way.
Well, and that was one thing you bring up a very good point. I've had a few people say, they've seen some video of Anthony, Ben, and I going up to the Eagle Cap Wilderness and hitting some of these places, and they're like, "We're going to go in there, blah blah blah." I'm like, you don't want to do that. What you see on paper seems doable. It's
always easier from the armchair. And that was the case of these guys. Man, you gain like 4,000 feet in elevation in like 6 miles. That's a tough road to hoe.
Well, and it's not. So you better have backup plan 2 and 3, B and C, for those situations. Don't put all your eggs in one basket when you're coming out here. You might bite off more than you can chew on a particular area that you saw on Google Earth.
These guys were like, elk ran in front of us on the way in, and it was awesome. And we got up there, and we were just outclassed. we didn't know what we were doing, and we were tired. And I'm like, now keep in mind at this particular time, I was only like a ridge line down from them. They were probably helping me pushing elk my way. But the kind of the moral of that story is they gave up on it. They talked themselves off the mountain completely. Like every excuse. And they told me as soon as they got in the truck, they started to regret coming out. Sometimes it's good. Pop your big butt down, take a break for half a day, recoup, figure out what you're doing. You can be very effective just sitting and resting, glassing, figuring out what's what around you, especially if you're up high specifically, and not killing yourself, because you can physically smoke yourself to where you can't go anymore either.
I was gonna say too, like if you're not if you want an adventure, but you don't want to you're not into running marathons or pushing yourself to to an extreme limit, maybe backpack hunting for elk isn't your thing. Stick with maybe mule deer.
And then that's worse than elk in Colorado, but yes.
I mean, and the reason I say is just that's a lot to pack out.
Yeah.
The deer is a lot smaller, just flat out. And so, because I've taken some friends that thought they were in pretty good shape, and they're up there 2 days, and they're like, "You guys do this for fun? This is the worst experience I've ever had in my life, and you're sick in the head, and this is not something that I would do year after year. Something's wrong with you." So, I mean, you've got to have that mentality for it, or you're gonna hate it.
Right, and you definitely, there's some suck involved in it, and some guys embrace that and they love that portion of it, like you and I. And hunting this year, God, he listens to these. I don't even want to mention his name, but so I'm not going to for this one specific. But this specific guy is very hardcore, very competitive. He'll do whatever it takes. But he is so infatuated with killing an elk that he kind of gets grass is greener than syndrome, maybe, or he wants to kill one so bad he's willing to do whatever it takes, except whatever it takes, maybe just parking your butt where you are and figuring out where the elk are, and he gets into elk all the time. But the point being is a lot of people, even people that live out west, can get into an area and talk themselves out of that area when they may not. They probably shouldn't. And some of the areas, in the specific case of like Colton and I this year, if a normal hunter that didn't know what they were doing had went into where we were at that 5th, 6th, and 7th day or whatever it was, and there was nothing. There was a mass exodus of all elk, probably because of some forum. But we knew we could find them. We knew they were there. They had to be there. And so we were physically able to travel far enough until we did. And Colton killed a great bull. Having that mental toughness and that physical ability and knowing where those animals should or potentially will be is going to be your biggest, in my opinion, your biggest battle. Buying a tag's pretty easy. Driving out here is pretty easy.
When we backpacked into the Eagle Caps, Ben and Anthony and I, it was like 12 or 14 miles, and we shot this bull elk, and it was literally, you had to climb a cliff. I mean, it was hands and feet, handholds to get up for this whole 100-yard section. It was pretty freaky. I mean, it was seriously wild country, but it was pretty exciting. But we pretty much knew going in that there was 3 of us, and we had pack goats, which is a whole nother podcast, hiking with pack goats. But we pretty much knew we were going to shoot one elk on that trip. Mm-hmm. It was for the adventure.
Yeah.
So the 3 of us went in for one elk. And then when we got done, it was like we went to Plan B area because we were burnt. We needed more time to recover before we could go back into a place like that and do it again.
Well, go ahead.
And so what I was going to say is, we focused on the adventure more than we did on the success. We were willing to just have one of us be the first guy that shot one was the first guy, the only elk we were going to shoot back there, and then pack it out. And it was when we look back on it, it was probably, Ben talks about it often. He's like, that to me was one of the most the highlights of anything I've ever done. Just one of the most his fondest memories of our backcountry hunts we've been on. It was also the hardest, the most grueling, and the most torturous of all.
Yeah, I won't forget the one with Colton and I this year. We'll probably be able to walk 150. You're right, though. Those are the ones you remember.
I was going to ask you, how much time should someone allot for an elk hunt?
7 to 10 days is. I always look at it like this. 4 days in the wilderness, as you know, can seem like an eternity. It can forever staying 3 to 4 nights. But the reality of it is, if you're going in blind, sometimes it can take you 3 to 4 days just to find the animals, unless you have inside intel. Completely different story. Mm-hmm. I would say the best hunt is going to be 7 to 8 days of hunting and 2 days of travel. So you got 10 days off. If you can do that, mix weekends in there. Most people can do that. You got 5 weekdays. You got 2 on either end. So you got 9 days there. Throw it in with the 4-day weekend that's generally during like archery elk. If you're going to be bow hunting, that gives you 9 days or 10 days. So if you can pull that off, 10 days, 2 days of travel, 8 days in the field, most people, no matter what people say on the internet, because most guys on forums are full of crap anyway, most people can't do 7 to 8 days in the wilderness straight anyway. Most of them pop smoke early and come on out. So, in my opinion, 8 hunting is good.
Okay, because I was going to say something similar. When I was talking to Corey Jacobson a couple times, he likes to go for 7 days, come back, take a couple weeks, and then go for 7 days or a week off, recover, and go back for another 7 days. Now, he's going really hard when he's out there for those 7 days. But my experience has been that the first 3 or 4 days, it's like you're working out kinks. You're finding where the elk are at. You're figuring out their behavior. Even if it's an area I've been, it's still, what's this herd bull doing right now, and how are these elk responding? Where are they going this season? So it's a little different. It just takes a few days for us to kind of pin it down, and then it takes a couple more days to get in, and we blow a couple stalks, or things don't quite go right. But it seems like 7 days is kind of a minimum for us to get to be successful.
Unless the only difference is if you've hunted it, you hunt it in 2016.
Yeah.
And you hunt it in 2017. You're real successful. You've learned the area.
Oh, for sure.
But let's say you have a wedding in 2018, and you don't blow off the hunt because you can only hunt 6 days if you know the spot. Now, where it gets a little, and always, if you have the funds, it's always good to just go if you can go. But you can spend 4 days out of a 5-day hunt just finding the dang animals.
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. I like, and it's funny when I look around, I've never seen this done before, but I'd be very curious to see if you put statistics up. We always talk about how 10% kill an elk every year archery, and it's like the same 10% or something like that. And there does seem to be a lot of consistency, like a learning curve. Once a guy starts killing elk, it's like they just they got it figured out. They're killing elk all the time. But it's like getting those first ones seem to be tough. But what I was going to say is, if you take how many days a guy spends in the field, and then you calculate that out, I think that there's like the amount of time a guy spends in the field has a direct correlation to how successful he is. So there's guys like that kill an elk every year. And I'm like, how many days did you hunt? And it's like 14 days, 15 days out in the wilderness.
It makes a huge difference. That's
a huge difference from a guy who goes, Saturday, a weekend warrior twice, 4 days. You're just, the opportunities, it's just not that easy. You can't just walk out and do it.
You can get into elk in that many times. It's just shooting one can be extremely difficult because just Mother Nature's a pain in the butt.
Exactly. It's not like we're not close, and we don't have close encounters all the time, and it's fun, but it's to get it done. It can take some time, especially when you're new at it. So if there's anything I could say, and Anthony was really big on this when we first started hunting together. It was like he wanted to take a lot of time off. He's like, first of all, it takes like a few days just to unplug yourself from your life, the internet and distractions and email and everything and work, just to like unplug. And the longer you're out there, the more that you adapt to the discomfort, the more you get into that groove. It's just like a primal thing that happens. I think it's just, I'm an advocate for more time. Get more time off if you can, and spend more time doing it in a row.
Right. No, and I agree. It's just, the only thing I would say is if you can't get a ton of time, don't give up all hope.
Yeah. No. I'd rather do something than nothing. But if you can start working out so you can get more time.
Well, the other thing that plays heavily into that is if you're going to take less time, you better be in really good shape, because if you've got several strikes against you, you're short for your weight, you don't know animal behavior, and you only got 5 days off. There's a lot of cards stacked against you in the deck.
Right.
But if you're just a physical machine, you know animal behavior pretty well, and you can only get a short amount of time, you may be able to cheat the system by fitness and knowing the animal. Where if you aren't that fit and you don't know animal behavior that well, you're cheating the system by taking more time off. There's always kind of a balance. I mean, when we went that bear hunt, we went on the Idaho-Montana border this year. None of us had ever been there. We just picked the spot on the map. Bears are bears or whatever, but we were like on the phone arguing with, don't make fun of me. I was trying to figure out which spot would be best for photos. I'm like, looking Google Earth, and I'm like, this looks like it'll hold bears, and it looks good. And then we're hearing intel we can't get in, and we can. And finally, last minute, we picked a spot nobody had been to. And we hiked, and nobody had been here, right? And we all got too much gear. We didn't know what to expect. We're going through like 8-foot snow drifts, right? It's melted. Like, I felt bad for Ryan because he came in behind me with his wife. I'm like, dude, just follow the footprints. Man, he got on top. There was no footprints. Man, I had to wind around with Billy George, super cool guy, trying to figure out what the damn trail was. There was like, you could see little tops of trees, and then I'd fall down to the bottom of them. He'd have to pull me out. So we get way back there, and we look around, and I'm like, man, the bears are going to be there. They've got to be, right? There's only one spot. And this is an area that probably hadn't been hunted in 80 years because the snow is usually so deep at this specific time of the year. It hadn't been hunted in years. We sit there and watch. Out comes a bunch of bears. And Billy, he's a hardcore dude. He grabs, I'm watching this bear have no intention of even moving off my rock. It's almost dark. But this is what it takes. Billy grabs his pack and his gun from where our bivvies are at, and our tarp runs up, and he yells, he says, man, Goonies never say die. I'm going. Exact words. And I'm like, man, they'll be there in the morning. I'm like, I don't want to go over there now. He's like, what do you mean? Exactly that. I was like, that is like a mile away, and it's almost dark. We might kill him, but then we got to pack it out. I was like, it'll be there in the morning. Man, I want to kill one. And I was like, it'll be there. No big deal. So we actually waited, thank God, till the next morning. But man, it was a poke, right? We got in on him, and it was the rut. Bears are running everywhere. We ended up he had a bear. He almost shot bigger than that one I shot this year. It was big. Just came, and what's funny is the things you get into when you're 8 miles in. I go to take a piss, and there's a bear standing by me across the creek. And I've already shot my bear, and I had a second tag, but I wasn't going to be a hunting Nazi. And I was like, I come over, I'm like, Billy, it's a freaking bear by the creek. And he's like, because we'd seen the one bear the night before. And I don't know why I'm telling this story. There was an awesome adventure. I'm like, dude, I'm not kidding. I may have been actually going number 2. I'm like, dude, it was right there. I could have shot it with my bow. And he's like, oh, is it the same bear? I said, no, this was like a 180-pound black bear. That other one was cinnamon. Well, then all of a sudden we see this huge 350-pounder run across the field. And I'm like, man, it's running. It must have smelled this. And then it stops. And it turns around and comes back. And I'm like, wait. It's running back up the hill. Wait, there's there's a cinnamon bear. And there were 7 bears in that field running around. They were in the rut. And there was one of those sows was an estrus. Man, Billy looked like he was getting attacked by Al-Qaeda. I mean, he's like, finally this big one comes out. Huge bear. It must have been a 400-pounder, 350. And he didn't end up getting to shoot that one. But we ended up getting one. Shot one that night. Packed it up. Buried it in the snow. I mean, it is hot, right? Mm-hmm. Hike back. So, we're here, shoot bear here, trails here, go back up the trail, circle back, find those guys, and we're like, okay, let's go shoot another one. And they're looking at us like, no, we're not going over there. And we ended up finding a way to go back around and down to them. But the point being is, without physical fitness and knowing where they were, we would have never even looked over there. I mean, if you didn't know how habitat for bears works, mm-hmm. You're basically looking at a mile away with binoculars at something just glass over quickly. You would have never noticed these bears were coming out of basically it's like a chokecherry type brush. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, but that was blind, never been in there, and no different than anybody coming out west other than I knew bears decent. We got it done. I mean, we killed a bear. We could have killed more, but at a certain point you have to cut sling load and hike out because some of the people, I won't mention any names, probably wouldn't have made it out with another 10 pounds on their pack, and we were packing out bears, so we kind of had to figure out what we could actually make out weight-wise and whatnot. But it was a great hunt, great adventure. Billy was awesome to hunt with. I mean, it was exciting, the whole trip, and I'd never been there.
Yeah, same thing for me, like Prince of Wales. We got on a boat. We've taken the ferry. We've flown there before. We've driven our own vehicle there. I've done it both ways. A little bit of research, a little bit of planning, and pricing it out. I've got advice for each of those situations for when to take the ferry, when not to. But going to Prince of Wales and bear hunting, we did a podcast on that earlier. I think that's just an epic adventure. You can do a little fishing while you're there out on the ocean. You can do it on the rivers and chase bear. It's economical. It's not that expensive. It's just a really cool hunt. There's just a lot of hunts like that out west. With all the public land that we have, make it happen. Plan it, do it. If you want to, make it happen because it's not that difficult to do.
No, it's not. So, I mean, I would, with everything we've said, get in shape, get the best gear you can afford, pick an area that, from whatever info and intel you can get, sounds like holds animals.
Pick a species.
Yeah, the species part, sometimes you can double up on those or whatever. Yeah, figure out what your heart's content with.
Weapon, rifle or bow.
Yeah, and I guess I'm skipping those because I'm thinking that's a given or implied. But yeah, figure out what type of hunt you want, whether it's bow or gun. Obviously,
you can pretty much check the success rates if being successful is a big deal. Not just about the adventure, but you want to actually, we all want to be successful, but the success rates with a rifle hunt are much higher than those with a bow hunt. So they're also a little harder to draw or to get sometimes. It might take 2 or 3 points or something. Over-the-counter opportunities can be a little sometimes limited. But if you look, there's over-the-counter rifle opportunities all over the West. So
a lot in Colorado.
Yeah. So those have very high success rates, and you can check those out as well. Those stats are pretty much usually available. You can find them online.
The DOW website has all the stats.
And so that's how
accurate they are.
That's something I look at. I'm like, what are my odds of success here, and blah blah blah, and then I
go there. See, and I go the other route. I look for what's not as successful, thinking that people like you won't go to that area, and then I mimight be successful. So there's many different ways.
I employ that technique as well.
Oh, that's funny. But I would, the one thing, Google is a powerful thing, and so is a phone. Call it if you have questions.
Yeah.
Don't call me on how to draw for your tag. If you have questions on the actual technical portion of it, that's why we pay those fine game wardens and office people at the Department of Wildlife.
Call Anthony if you're going to hunt Eastern Oregon.
Yeah, in fact, Brian's going to post his phone number and email shortly. Just kidding. But, make some phone calls to the Department of Wildlife office. Do not expect good info from them on where to hunt because they have thousands of other people asking them the same question. So not that there's anything wrong with the info they give, but it's certainly not going to be grade A prime real estate they're telling you to go to, because everyone has to ask them info. So they're going to give general info, not bad info. It's generally just, unless you draw a prime tag, then everybody's going to help you. But if it's just over the counter, they're just going to give you statistics, things like that.
Yep.
Not a big deal. But if you have issues with how to draw, meaning filling out the paperwork online or handwritten, call them and ask. If you have questions on what unit to draw for, that's where you want to look at the forums, have guys shoot you some PMs, things like that.
Yep.
And for God's sake, don't get on Google Earth and copy everyone's spot.
Yeah, from their photos.
Yes.
I think we can wrap it up, dude. Anything else?
I think that's it.
All right. Enjoy your day, everybody. Stay gritty out there. Go give us a review on iTunes. If you get a chance, go like our Facebook page. Go follow us on Instagram. Follow, right?
Like and follow. Use Phelps Games calls. They call more elk in than anyone. Kafaru packs are extremely comfortable. I don't know what else other plug I can throw in. And sniff Yeti every Monday.
That's right. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. Stay gritty. Okay, gritty friends. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you did, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. We love reading your reviews. And connect with us on social media if you're on there. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram. And take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can receive notifications when we upload new videos. We've got a sweet deal with Mountain Ops. You get 20% off on all Mountain Ops supplements, combo packs, and apparel when you type in the word gritty at checkout. If you're a hardcore elk hunter, or you want to be, go to the Elk 101 website online and check them out. Our friend Corey Jacobson is killing it with some of the best elk hunting information and entertainment on the web. If you haven't heard, we're doing a huge gear giveaway to try and grow and expand the gritty community on Facebook and Instagram. I asked a bunch of friends to pitch in on this gear giveaway, and they all came through with some awesome stuff. Our friends at Kafaru, Rockslide, First Light, Phelps Game Calls, One Shot Gear, Mountain Ops, Triple X Archery, Blacktail Outdoors, and Is It September Yet are pitching in some sweet gear for the giveaway. We'll announce all the details in the next few weeks. All you have to do to be entered to win is like our Gritty Bowmen Facebook page and follow us on Instagram. All right, friends, let me leave you with one other quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It behooves every man to remember that the work of the critic is of altogether secondary importance, and that, in the end, progress is accomplished by the man who does things." We all have a choice. We can be people who do things or people who criticize the work of others. It's pretty simple, really. Get out there and do your thing. Good luck on your hunts, and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.